Testing 1, 2. Can you say something, Ingrid?
Yes, I'm still on couch number 3.
Perfect. This is a continuation of an interview with Ingrid Shutkin on October 20, 2005. And this is take 3, side A.
All right. So we were still in Gdansk.
We went back to Gdansk.
Yeah.
Danzig.
In Danzig. Yeah.
For all of you people who will be listening to this in the future, let's see. Gdansk
Is
the
Danzig. No, Gdansk is the Polish. Danzig.
Okay, Gdansk
Danzig.
is the Polish name, and Danzig is the German name. It's the same place.
Yes.
That took me a long time to figure out. I was lost in my research until I found that out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the same thing, Danzig.
Yeah.
And anyway, so we were in Danzig on the again. And my aunt said we need a piece, if we want to catch a train, we need a paper from some party functionary. So she went to his office and she concocted a story. She told him, he was sitting there in his party uniform. And she told him she was the mother of 6. And she only had me with her. The other 5 had gone ahead with her sister-in-law in Germany, and she needed to be reunited with her other 5 children. And I mean, anybody that could have looked at her a little bit closer would have said, this lady never had 5 children. But she concocted the story, and she, I guess, was convincing. And this party person sat there, and he said, you are just as safe over here in Danzig as you would be in the Reich, because that's what, we said. And he said, my family left 4 weeks ago, and I still haven't heard from them. And then my aunt said to him, oh, your family left? He didn't say another word. He wrote out this piece of paper that said we could leave the city and handed it to her. See, she caught him. So back we walked. My grandmother had waited in a railroad station. Now was the thing, oh, never mind. And now was the thing to figure out when there was a train leaving, right? Because there were no scheduled trains. So this was all rumor. My aunt would walk around and listen. And then she heard from some wounded soldier that said that a train was leaving, at that night from, I don't know, somewhere out there. So that night when it got dark, we didn't have much. We had each a little bag, when we had to climb that ladder, up onto the ship, you didn't. My aunt had a thing with papers and stuff that just went down into the sea. Anyway, so we walked with our little bag out there, and sure enough, there was a train, and they were putting wounded soldiers on, and my aunt had this piece of paper that she showed that young man who was helping everyone. He said, civilians can't go on, and so some of those German soldiers just stepped back and said, come on in, and put us in the row, that was going onto the train, and that young guy didn't say anything, and we just got onto this train. There were very few civilians, mostly soldiers, and that is how we got out in a long, long train ride from Danzig to Berlin. All along up here. We were in one of the last trains that went up here, because every once in a while the train had to stop. There were shootings.
Is that the train you told me to research? You told me to research a train called the Corridor.
Yeah, that was
through the corridor because
that was before.
Okay.
That train was before going through the corridor.
Okay.
That was the one
okay.
why Hitler started the Poland, said, we need to free the corridor, whatever.
Yes,
yeah.
Okay.
But this train came. This was already past. The corridor was through Poland here. But this was the provinces of Pomerania and all of that. So we came up here along on this train, and we came down to Berlin. And this, I think it took 3-4 days to come.
So you went this way.
Yeah, and we just sat on the floor and all these nights you just slept.
Did you eat?
I don't remember. I'm sure we did, whatever. But I remember when we were in Danzig, I got diarrhea, and there was nothing, but we got chocolate, and that stopped. Yeah, that stopped my diarrhea for whatever. But other than that, I don't remember eating, and I don't remember. We never bathed. You couldn't or change your underwear. I didn't change my underwear from Christmas Day because what are you gonna? I didn't have anything, and you couldn't wash your underwear because it wouldn't dry.
They arrived over here Christmas Day. Did you celebrate it or no?
Yeah. Well,
You went
whatever.
on, right?
Yeah.
With
whatever.
Because
Yeah.
the next day.
It was when the
Russians.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then your mom was still over here at Karl Marx Stadt?
Yeah, that was Chemnitz. At the Karl Marxstadt was
Sorry,
under the communist.
Okay.
East Germany was Karl Marxstadt. Before that was Chemnitz.
Okay, Chemnitz.
Yeah, she had been by that time. She had been moved because they were bombed out,
Yeah.
and she had been moved to Bayreuth. Bayreut, somewhere down.
It's not. Maybe it's not in here.
Let me see.
Here it is. I found it.
You found it? Good.
Right
Yeah,
there.
right there. Yeah.
She was here and
She
you
was
were
the-
here.
Yeah, we got into Berlin.
And when did you contact her? Did you guys ever get to contact her?
Not until I think 47 or 48 did we find out where she was.
Whoa.
See, we had the last
44, 45, 46.
yeah, because the last time we heard she was in Chemnitz, and we knew she was bombed out. That was the last we heard. So anyway, we got to we came here on this train, and that took a long time, and I don't remember eating, or I remember I wanted to sleep, stretch out, but there was no place to stretch out. So, and then we got to Berlin, because that was all bombing and underground.
We had that was 45.
Yeah.
You were in
Yeah.
January, March 45.
That was late February. Late February.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because it was only a few months later that they had the Yalta conference, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when they divided.
Yeah. But see, we always thought we would be able to go home once the war was over.
Okay.
We didn't know
What
that.
happened in between that time?
So now we got to Berlin.
Mm-hmm.
We had relatives in Berlin, and so we walked through the streets, but they owned a small hotel that was bombed, and they were in the set there, so we couldn't stay there. So we went back to the railroad station, and we climbed on any train that was, and the train took us to Annaberg, where the train was actually supposed to go to Dresden, but it was all in flames, as we went past Dresden, the whole city was aflame. So it must have been the end of February. Yeah, Dresden was bombed February 12th and 13th.
So you went through there?
We couldn't,
Okay, you
no,
couldn't.
because that was all destroyed and all of that. So we came to a town called Annaberg.
Annabelle.
It's in the Ur Mountains, somewhere down here. Look down here somewhere.
Okay, let me see if I find it. Okay, I don't see.
Let me see.
But here you
Let me see, because I know the. Erzgebirge. Yeah. No, it's not on here.
Okay.
But it's Wickerplauen now. It's not on here.
Okay, but it's around.
It's somewhere here.
It's somewhere
Mhm.
around Plauen.
No, it's south of it. It's right. I'll tell you, right around in here. See,
Okay.
south of Chemnitz. There was a little
Okay.
railroad that went down in there. The
Further
Ur
down on the
Mountains.
map. Okay.
Yeah, Erzgebirge. So they shoved us in there, and that's where we sat. We got there, and then we were put into someone's home. As a matter of fact, they had a factory that made these uh, glitter for dresses, and we were upstairs in that factory we put there, and we stayed there until the war was over.
And it was just a few months, no?
Yeah, we got there March, well, the end of February, must have been the last days of February, first days in March, I think something like that. And then we stayed there until July, because then they didn't have any food and they wouldn't give us. That was hunger. I learned from hunger.
Okay.
That was, we didn't get any food, and I think it was the last of July, 1st of August, when they said all the refugees had to get out. There was no more food. You didn't get food stamps. There was nothing, absolutely nothing to eat. So we got out of there, and there are a lot of little stories in between. You know, I just give you the real outline. And then we were put on a train. There was only one train a day, and all these refugees had to get out, and it was, awful. But we got onto a train, and they brought us to a camp outside of Chemnitz or somewhere, and let's see, they put us into that camp, and then my aunt, my mother's sister-in-law, my father's brother's wife, and her daughter lived in a little town named Strela. We got, somehow, I don't know how my aunt found out, but we found out that she was there. So we we took a train, which was always very difficult, you know, because the trains were packed, those few that were going after the whole thing was over. And then we got to Strela, and we got to Strela, I guess, July and August. And then they put me into a school again there. There was a school, but it wasn't, it was just a regular grade school. But my grandmother thought school is better than no school at all. So I went there for a very short time, but then the Russians got very frisky again. And we just didn't feel comfortable because that school was next to this, where these Russian soldiers were, and they were just getting very frisky, very, started to, oh no. So then we stayed there direct on the Elbe River. There used to be a ferry going across, and we stayed in the ferry little room there. And every morning there were bodies on the front. There had been a rope going across, one of those where the ferry goes across, and a lot of the dead bodies that came floating down the Elbe River, where every morning I would see these bodies on the front door, a little bit. And that was not. When you're 13, then I was 14 already. It's kind of, not. Yeah, pictures that stick, that don't go away. Anyway, so we would see every morning there were bodies, because some of them were suicides that had jumped. Some of them were the Czechs had killed, the Germans that had gone into the Czech area. They had killed them, shot them, and dumped them in a river. And some of them were mutilated and thrown in the river into the Elbe. And so, we spent Christmas there. And, the Elbe River. Yeah.
You're right by there.
And then from there, in January, we were taken to Dresden, right outside Dresden. And then we got a little room in someone's house, and that's where we stayed then until, that's where I went back to school then in Weinbühler outside of Dresden. And that's in Dresden I went to school, and that's where we stayed until I left in 1949.
And
Then I knew where my mother was, and then slowly, you found out where all the relatives, those that survived, were. So then in 49 I crossed the border.
To where?
To Bayreuth, to where my mother was.
Now, okay. Let me ask you a question here. At this time, while you were displaced, because I imagine, you say people just walking around. By this time, the Yalta Conference had taken place. There was a lot of liberation of concentration camps for Jews. Did you meet any of them?
Oh yeah, there were a lot of Jews that suddenly came, and there was a lot of they were in East Germany. This was then became East Germany. I know we were trying to we thought we were going to go to West Germany, and then it was the border. There was a border fortified, and you couldn't get across. But there were a lot of Jews that came. I don't know from where, and they were very active in the black market. So especially in the cities, like Dresden and Leipzig and Berlin. And we went a couple of times, my aunt and I, to Berlin to get things, food especially, and shoes. For me, I always had problem with shoes.
Because you were used to them.
and
you were growing.
Yeah, and there weren't any available unless you went to the black market. And
now,
so.
Did you notice any camps?
No.
Concentration camps?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
They were not in our area, not where we were going.
And how about, well, then it became socialist where you were, right? Or where
Yes.
you, so how
Yes.
did your family take that? Did you take that?
Not very well, because you see, the thing was we were not supposed to say we were driven away from our home. We were told we had left. We left the area. We left voluntarily. We didn't. But under communism, that we were, we had just left our home, you see. And the victorious Russian army had those people that were there. They had freed them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And we were. So, you couldn't say anything.
I'm going to find a map after. I'm going to place you here after the war. You have 1919.
You're trying to find.
1945, here you are.
Yeah.
So 1945,
Yeah.
you were here, around this area here.
45, yeah, around Dresden.
Around Dresden, which is
Yeah.
yellow. But you were under the occupation of
Yes.
the
The Russians.
Russians.
Yes.
I'm trying
And
to-
they were all over. And, I had to take the streetcar
Okay.
through Dresden. And then you would get on the streetcar, and it was very crowded all the time. And someone would yell a riddle. What is brown, hangs on the streetcar and stinks? The Russian soldiers. in their brown uniform. Everyone would kind of smile and laugh, you know, when someone would say, God, what is, you know, there were Russians, because they used the streetcar too. They would jump and hang outside on the streetcar. They never went in. They just stayed outside, you know, and hung on. And so people would yell, what is brown, hangs on a streetcar and stinks? So anyway, those were those little chuckling things.
Now.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah.
What is Soviet right here? And your mom was also under Soviet?
No, she was in Bayreuth on the other
On
side.
this side.
In Bavaria.
How did you get there? You said you crossed in 1948?
49.
49. How did you?
Well, I took a train. I had heard, you know, there were people always gave you instructions, and there were things. Someone told my aunt that gave her an address for some smugglers that smuggled you across the border. And it cost so much, I don't remember how much. Anyway, so I took a train, and then there was a curb, and I was told where to jump off the train because it had to turn real sharp and was going real slow. And many, many people jumped off.
Your grandma too?
No. My grandma and my aunt stayed there, never left.
Oh.
And so I jumped off the train, and then I took my rucksack and I started to walk. And then I got to this little village, and I found this man that was going to smuggle us across. There was another couple and a boy who was 14. And so we waited until it got dark, and he said, now it's time, I don't know, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. And we walked across, and we walked through the woods and waded through the Halle River because it was very low there. And then once we were across there, he said, okay. So he went back, and we just walked on. He had given us directions, and we walked all night. And the other couple, I guess they were going toward the north. They went in another direction. This little boy was 14. We walked, and we were going to go to Hof, where the railroad station is that I was going to take to Bayreuth. So we're walking up along the woods, and there was a street down here, and I saw an American Jeep coming. And I thought, you know, by the time he goes and turns around, we're long gone in the woods. Well, that darn thing could go. I never knew that the Jeep could go up an embankment. And it did, to my great amazement. They came up the embankment, and these GIs got out with their machine guns. You know, here's a girl and a 14-year-old boy. You know. Anyway, they took us into custody and took us to wherever their station was, you know, where we were questioned. And I wanted to go. I didn't want to go. At that time in 49, the Americans were still in a fog, for a better word. Anyway, so they were going to take us back to the Russians. And I begged with my best school English and promised, you know. So I think they, in retrospect, I knew they played a game with me, you know. So they took us back to where we could see the Russian soldiers on their guard. And then I had to kiss these GIs passionately. And then they let me out a few hundred feet from the guardhouse, and they told me, now you go back. And I promised, and they laughed, got in their Jeep and drove off. And of course I turned around, because if I would have gone back, or if they would have handed me over, I wouldn't be here, you know. And so I got back, and I walked again quite a while.
And the boy?
Until he went off to, they let him go. They, you know, from that place, they let him go. But they were just, you know, kind of. Anyway, so I got back, and I watched for Jeeps. I knew they could go up a hill. And then I got back, I got to the train station in Hof, and bought a ticket because I had some money. And then I went to Bayreuth to my mother's, and there I was. I showed up.
And what did your mom?
She was very, very happy. She was very happy.
Did she ever ask you what happened, or you just never talked about it? What happened?
No, not really. Little bits, yeah. We talked a little bit about things, but not really. My mother and I talked more. My sister really never knew what all happened until I think about maybe a year ago that when I was there last year, a year before, we talked a little bit more about it. But she never really got the whole story.
And did
So-
anything like this happen to your mother? Like what you saw?
No, they were in that
They were sick.
in that house where they bombed. And my sister was for about 6 months after that. She was, what was she, 6 years old or so, but she had a phobia about flying things, about bees or flies or birds. She would go into a panic when they were flying, But about 6, and no counseling, no anything,
No counseling.
Yeah, like here everybody gets counseled immediately, But that was the only thing she suffered with for a while. So there.
So, I have to ask, when was the
Yeah.
point did you feel safe? Did you ever feel safe? Or did you ever reach a point of normality, when you felt, yes, I'm okay?
When we were in Annaberg, in the Ore Mountains, when we got there, I didn't feel safe or I'm okay. I think after, when we were there, first the Americans came in and then they withdrew and then the Russians came in. And then maybe after that, or when we got really, I've never felt home anywhere, But when we when we got to Dresden, that's when I really, felt, it's all over. This is it. And but we couldn't talk about it then either, because under the communist regime, these things didn't happen. It was all figment of our imagination. See, and we willingly left our home. So that probably when we were in Weinböhler in Dresden, I felt first time kind of, nothing can happen anymore. No bombings, no Russians, no.
And your father?
My parents' marriage was gone. There was too much, I guess. I don't know, he was a different person. And when he came back, he went up working for Volkswagen, and my parents separated and then they got a divorce. Ah! Were you expecting this, or was it
Oh, what do you mean?
more than you can?
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
fine.
you're
You're
okay.
fine.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. No one has ever asked really that much.
Oh, I have a lot more.
And I've never told many people. So, anyway.
For sharing it with us.
So what else
Okay.
what is your next question?
My next question was, well, you went with your mom, and it was 1948?
49,
49, how old were you?
18.
41, 18.
I was 18 in May, and this was Juni, July, August, September, October, November, year 19 and 18 and a half.
I'm just curious, how was your outlook on life then? What did you think was going to happen? Did you have a house?
No.
What happened to the house in Tilsit? Do you know?
Oh, yeah, it's still standing.
Who
It
did
is still Russians. It's still there. It has fallen apart. My mother's house, there are 4 families living in it. And when I was there the first time, I had a taxi driver who was my guide who took me out to the house. And
When did you go again?
I went the first time in 1997.